All right, Dave, you ready? Game of Thrones time. The long night. We're halfway through the last season. Only 3 more episodes left. Um, and this was kind of the one people were looking forward to the most. Uh, it's it's interesting because we've been aware of the White Walkers, or at least aware that there's some power out there since the first episode. Pretty much like one of the first moments of the first
It's
episode.
literally the first scene.
So, I mean, this has been building to this moment, and the White Walkers have arrived. Winter has fallen at Winterfell, and did this episode live up to all the hype? This is the longest battle ever recorded for, it's longer than Helm's Deep was like what they were pitching out there. Did this live up to the hype?
Yeah, longest for TV by a wide margin. Costs, I think, $15 million. They said it took almost 2 months to shoot, and all that checks out when you watch it. It was It was not disappointing for me. I love the episode. Depends who you ask, though, which is funny. It's not what I expected a lot of the discourse to be about a day later, but here we are. No, well, I really enjoyed it for tons of reasons. But I think, yeah. What about you? What'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. I was gonna say, I'm asking you, so I want to hear, what did you like about it? What made this? I don't know. Would you call it a classic Game of Thrones episode?
I don't know if I would see that. That's the thing, because Miguel Sapochnik directed this, and he's famous amongst the Thrones community for doing Battle of the Bastards, Hardhome, Battle of the Bastards, The Gift, Winds of Winter. 2 of the biggest battles, now 3 of the biggest battles, as well as the season 6 finale, which, Cersei blows up the Sept and all that. So he's really good at cinematic action on TV for this show, fitting the tone, all that. See, the thing about calling it, honestly, I think there's definitely classic moments. It's funny because I don't know how much of this people are going to like watch the YouTube clips of the way they do with like Hard Home, or even the more dramatic scenes like the stuff in Baylor, the Red Wedding stuff, or Mountain Viper. I don't know if this cracks that quite that high, but the way it ends definitely does. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really tried to rank it right away, but yeah, I guess I would say no, maybe not the highest. It's very close though. It's very close. I think it's probably like top 3 for battles. I put Hard Home ahead of it still. But I think I like this more than the Battle of the Bastards upon rewatching that recently.
Definitely, yeah.
I'm really high on it.
Definitely higher than Blackwater for you.
Yeah, and that's another one that was really impressive at the time. It still works totally fine, but what we've seen since, I think, has definitely trumped it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this is a classic Game of Thrones episode. It's definitely the biggest spectacle they've ever had, the most impressive, I think, episode they've ever had, only because they were tying so many different threads together throughout and had to give each character, amount of time that felt earned and appropriate, but also kind of kept it moving throughout. I agree. I think Hard Home is still the best battle that they ever shot. Just in terms of like pure suspense and like just being overwhelmed by like how scary it was. Like it really felt like you were trying to get away from these things. I felt like I was suffocating throughout this episode a lot of the time, though, which I think speaks to 2 things. One, it's an episode where one of the main critiques has been, it was too dark. You couldn't really see what was going on. The episode's name is The Longest Night, or The Long Night.
Long Night.
So
the titular long night.
It's going to be nighttime, and this is a time where electricity is not invented.
Bar, bro.
So it's not going to be that well lit. But even beyond that, I think it's supposed to feel overwhelming. I mean, the first you see Melisandre come out, lights the Dothraki, swords on fire, and Jorah leads this insane charge into the army of the dead. And as they get close, all you basically see, it looked just like a monster as they ran into the horde, because it was just like, holy crap. And you just see like the lights go out slowly, which is a really cool shot. But that pretty much set the tone. Like, this is going to be overwhelming, like, because there's an overwhelming number of soldiers or zombies that they have to kill you. The whites are very much outnumbering them, so it's going to feel close and hectic. So if you didn't have that feeling, and if you didn't feel like chaos, they weren't really doing service to what the battle was supposed to feel like. So I think they achieved that there. But second, this was maybe one of the most, I think, beautifully shot episodes. Like there are images I can like clearly remember that I thought were just were really well done. What did you think about just like the visual aspect of the episode?
Yeah, it's so funny. People are like, man, you gotta light this better. I'm like, you're telling Miguel Sapochnik how to fucking light action from your couch? Really? That's what we're doing here? This is the hill? And the thing is, I didn't have a problem keeping check any action. I turned my lights off. That was good enough. And I have a 1080p Vizio from 2014, 32 inches. I'm not even watching on a big ass TV. Um, I think it's interesting because if you were watching this through cable, that's only going to be 1080i. If you're watching on HBO Go, that only gives you like half the bit rate that Amazon Prime would give you if you connected HBO through that. So it's funny, I think, between maybe a little bit of a server load on HBO's end, but just some weird artifacting, which again is something that can pop up most in dark scenes. It popped up, and it was not an issue with the scenes. It was an issue with the delivery method. So it's kind of just an annoying gripe to hold against the episode, because it's like if someone was being really bad in the Avengers Endgame theater and it ruined your experience. The movie didn't do that. Someone next to you did. So I mean, blame your TV, blame your internet connection, blame Warner Media, I guess, if this really was an issue for you. But yeah, I thought it looked really great, and I think it sets the tone early, as you mentioned, with Melisandre lighting all the swords, and Melisandre coming back early into the fold.
Yep.
As soon as we see the figure, I'm like, I know exactly who that is. Who else could it be? Initially, though, I was like, is this like an envoy of the Night King, similar to how like Sauron sends that dude to speak for him in front of the Black Gate in Return of the King? And then when they do that charge, I'm like, oh, this is like when Faramir has to charge after Osgiliath and gets his ass fucking kicked because it was a stupid plan. Exactly what we just saw, except it was all at nighttime, and the choice to have the flames there signify what you're seeing, and you can tell right away it's not going to go well. Really smart. Funny that they have Ghost in there, and you actually see Ghost taking leaps and bounds. They're like, oh, Ghost is in action. They paid for this for a second. Then he goes away, but he survives, as we see in the final scenes. I think it looked really cool. I thought the dragon fighting, when the dragons are fighting, that's an awesome callback to the Dance with Dragons, which is Game of Thrones prehistory. Book fans know all about that, especially when they're above the clouds and we see like the beautiful sky above the clouds, and it looks really cool, like those blues. But that was fucking great. But everything really with Viserion, I think, was awesome when he was tearing up Winterfell at the end and almost kills Jon, shooting ice shit everywhere, ice fire everywhere. Looked really great. So yeah, I was a big fan of everything visually, everything technical.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when they take Rhaegal and Drogon out, when the Army of the Dead is first attacking, they're just totally overwhelmed. They just start like blowing fire just like right through the crowds. It was so visually like amazing to see like the scale of everything, and then see these huge dragons just kicking ass. Definitely was awesome. I have a lot of issues with the way that Dany and Jon use their dragons throughout. I thought a lot of problems with that, but otherwise, I really liked.
Yeah, dragons. I think we know now that Dany is a high usage, low PER player, and Jon just has like a low battle IQ. It seems like he just has that natural God given talent that he can succeed on the battlefield, but he really needs that coach or that wingman, in this case Arya, to win the game. It seems like
bad instincts by Jon, like,
but it's in character. We've seen this before.
Yeah, and also the Night King. So I think we're referring to when Jon jumps off Rhaegal and tries to go fight the Night King in the battlefield. It has to be saved by Dany after the Night King raises all the dead and basically just surrounds Jon. Yeah, it was great, but I was also like, come on, bro, square up. Like you gotta show Jon Snow what's what, especially because he just stares at him every time they see each other. They just stare at each other. It's like this weird, like what's actually going on there.
Nothing. I think that was the point. Night King don't care.
And I guess we can probably get to that now. To kind of jump to the end of the episode a little bit. Obviously, if you've watched, Arya, LeBron James blocks the shot off the backboard, saves Winterfell and humanity in general, with an amazing. I don't even know how she got this running start or where she was jumping from, but she, Night King comes around, catches her. She does the Ray or the Arya drop the dagger, stab in
Yep.
the stomach move, um, and the White Walkers are dead. And winter, I guess, is now over. I don't know if that's true.
It could.
Um, I guess, but regardless, I mean, did you like that ending? Did that feel like a satisfying ending to the White Walkers to you, or were you kind of bummed, like, that's it?
Yeah, see, I think this is a quote problem that happens with shows that are so have such a fanatical following, like Game of Thrones. We do this with a lot of stuff. Star Wars, most recently, Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Marvel and DC to a little lesser extent. Um, People care so much and are so invested that they get so many ideas in their head about what they want to see or what they want, where they want the story to go. All of this, right?
Right.
Reddit culture, right? In some instances, it's great. It's literally the only thing that keeps people watching Westworld, for example. But when, especially like Game of
Shots
Thrones,
at Westworld.
I mean, I'll always take shots at that. But when something like Game of Thrones can confidently tell its own story, but it maybe takes it in a way you didn't want, it can leave people longing. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I think that's a problem with nothing but the audience setting their own expectations. Uh, I think the thing with this instance of the Night King approaching Bran is people are like, what the fuck's gonna happen? Is the Night King gonna take a knee? Are we gonna find out their connection? Is there more going on in the Three-Eyed Raven and the Night King? And we had some exposition from Bran last week about the role of the Night King and the Three-Eyed Ravens of old. What's going on? What's gonna happen? And I think it turns out that the show ultimately treats the Night King and the White Walkers exactly the way it always has. As
Mm-hmm.
ultimately a one-dimensional evil threat. Whether that changes in the books, honestly, well, I expect it would, but we probably will never know because George R. R. Martin does not have 3 more books in him.
Yeah.
And I've read the books, so I'm going to say that he's not finishing it, so we're never going to get the ending. So people throwing out, well, it's not going to end that way in the books, are kind of missing the point because there is no other ending. We're not getting it.
If you want to get some George R. R. Martin culture, though, he's definitely got some thoughts on the Giants draft and probably the Jets as well, since he's a fan of both.
He's also a Giants and a Jets fan.
Yeah, I don't know how, but you can follow those takes. He'll definitely get those out there
on his live journal or whatever.
No, I agree, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed because I feel like they alluded to all these little tidbits that there was definitely more to the backstory of the Night King, and to the White Walkers and just their history and what they wanted, and in a way, it's almost kind of like. It's almost kind of like every or most superhero villains, where really they just want to destroy everything, and that's okay if that's what the show really intended it to be. But it just felt like they had more intention at the beginning, and the show almost along the way was like, I don't know if we have time for this, or I don't know if we want to flesh this part out because maybe it's too confusing or it's too much to show for the show. The books can expand on that all they want, but it definitely feels a little disappointing to me. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I still think this is an excellent episode. Um, you know, I do have questions and probably unanswerable ones, like why the Night King was the one that had to kill Bran. You have millions, or seems like thousands of zombies that could have just killed him right there. Why did the Night King have to kill him?
I mean, it seems like he's always wanted to be the one, right?
Right.
Like this happened in the door when they break through after Night King Bran allows Night King to touch him and changes that barrier. It goes away, right?
Yep.
The White Walkers all wait around the old Three-Eyed Raven, Max von Sydow, for the Night King to show up so the Night King can do the deed, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like, yeah, it's like there's a lot that we don't understand how that works, and I think the show has never really fully leaned into like the prophecy angle of the story in the books. There's a lot of them, and most of them are acknowledged on the show, but they're not woven in such a way that they're ever on the mind of most viewers.
Right.
And Azor Ahai, that's the
Princess Promise.
Lord Prince of Promise, the Lord of Light angle. Then we have the There's so many of them, right?
Valonqar, and
Well, the
which has
Valonqar is
never
different,
actually.
but there's a
Is it?
lot of them. But the thing is, they never really get sign that mounts the world, the Dothraki. There's a lot of them. They never really get any kind of payoff. And frankly, in the show, the only one who's really driving any of that is Melisandre. And I actually really liked how they used Melisandre in this episode and have her finally come back to Westeros and die, as she said she would. We already knew she was using a glimmer to be uh, make herself look younger than she actually is. But
Mhm.
she got the prophecy wrong the whole time, really. She thought it was Stannis, right?
Mhm.
And then once Stannis went down, she's like, oh, it's actually about Jon. And now people are like, well, but if Jon didn't kill the Night King, it was Arya. Is Arya Azor Ahai? No, it's like actually, as far as the show's concerned, no one was. Melisandre was wrong. And I
Right.
think that's okay. I know maybe it'll be different in the books if we ever get there, but the show never really cared too much about that, and that was never a negative about the show, which is something that just didn't flesh out. So I didn't really bother me. But I think you're right, and that, again, not a problem for me or you. It seems like, but some people it clearly is. The Night King and the White Walker threat did just feel like it had an abrupt end
Mhm.
because we kind of were looking for something more out of the connection with Bran and motivation. But as I said before, we never had really any reason to believe there was actually any other tangible motivation. It
Mhm.
hasn't been there. And yes, having Bran mention last week about how they're just kind of trying to erase the human history, the never ending darkness, all that, maybe it would be nice if we kind of got that a little earlier, just to kind of think about it more. But ultimately, I think it's effective at the end of the day. You know?
Definitely effective, and I think more than anything, it's an equalizing thing, because I think Danny would have marched in there and absolutely wiped the floor with Cersei, and they're obviously on to take the Iron Throne now. They have the two dragons still, even though Rhaegal probably is a little messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
I
Drogon.
don't, yeah, and Drogon too, but Rhaegal was the one that the Danny was riding when the White Walkers were
No,
like
Danny's on Drogon. Rhaegal was
oh
the
the whole time
one.
that got fucked up by
Rhaegal got fucked up
Viserion.
by Viserion
Yeah.
in the fight.
So they both took some licks. And I mean, what's left of their armies? Probably nothing, except every character with a plot left made it out of this
Yeah.
battle.
I mean, we assume almost none, probably no Dothraki. Most of the Unsullied died as well, besides Grey Worm. I'm sure there's
Yep.
maybe a few left. Some Northmen left. All the Ironborn with Theon are dead.
Mhm.
It's not that many. And I think that's a question to talk about next episode. But it's funny, like people, oh, the Night King, he was vanquished so quickly and it ended so abruptly. I'm like, let's analyze what we watched. They won. It was over. They
Right.
did it. The Night King won, and then Arya happens.
Yeah.
And Arya, as we said, has been taking over the internet, meme to death, deservedly so.
Yeah.
And I really love it because this is honestly the best arc they could have done. Jon Snow, as we mentioned, has never had any genius on the battlefield the way Robb Stark did, right? Jon has just kind of gotten lucky
Mhm.
and failed to achieve his death wish that he clearly has, right? And Dany has never been a commander on the field. She's been behind the back. So expecting one of them to do it, um, I'm sure they could have pulled it off, especially Jon. But having Arya do it, who they've literally dedicated entire seasons of the show for her journey, becoming a stone cold killer and a stealthy assassin, to see people be like, "How did Arya get there in time? How'd you get by all these whites?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" If there's anything that was ever established on this show, it was that Arya could have pulled this off.
Right.
And I think it's the best end of her narrative arc, and such great payoff that while I didn't see it coming, I'm still actually really thrilled about it because I think it was the most logical thing they could have done. This is the way they're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, Arya is just the greatest to ever do it, and she also got two of the best callback lines in this episode. Not only did she get the sticking with the pointy end when she gave the
Mm-hmm.
dagger to Sansa, but then she got during the pep talk with Melisandre. What do we say to the God of Death? Not today. And then she takes off running and just ran right into the Night King doing the damn thing. But the thing is, like, every scene with her was like probably my favorite scenes throughout this episode, when she's first fighting with that staff and just
Oh
kicking
fuck,
ass up there.
badass!
Amazing. And then like she's kind of starting to get overtaken. She's like jumping off roofs, just trying to survive. Is in that library, which is like I think the Ringers Talk of the Thrones said alien, which I think is uh, a great comparison. It's just like that like feeling. It's like in Zelda when you're trying to avoid the guards in Ocarina of Time, and like you have to like
Hmm.
walk
Oh yeah,
behind them and not get caught. Such a tense situation. And then that running and the Hound and Barrack saving her. The whole like every scene with her was just so fantastically done and well thought out. And her character arc, compared to John, is really interesting because Arya always wanted to be what she's become, and John has reluctantly been pushed into what he's become. And I think it's just a really cool comparison to see their journeys and how the show has taken them from where they started to where they are. Uh, just it really speaks to how well thought out George R. R. Martin had these characters when he first started writing them, and how the show I think has done a really good job of servicing them in a realistic way. In terms of a fantasy show realism. Want to talk about the deaths real quick because we didn't
yeah.
get as many as we thought. Um, Body count for the characters we care about, maybe six: Ed, Lyanna Mormont, Jorah, Barrack, Theon. I think I'm missing one there.
Viserion, Night King, Melisandre.
Yeah, I guess Night King. Yeah, Melisandre. Yeah, so I guess maybe we got like 8 deaths, 9 deaths we cared about. We expected a lot more. Brienne made it out. People thought she was done for. Grey Worm. I mean, I had him buried last week, so
Sure.
he's unbelievable.
Podrick,
Podrick, yeah. These are also the only people that survived.
Tormund. That's a big one.
Yeah, Tormund. I didn't see him at the end though. Like, I'm sure he's
Neither.
alive,
Either.
but yeah, Ghost somehow just ran into all the dead and just
He's
survived.
fast. It's fine.
Where'd he go?
Again, Ghost has
He's doing
always
so
been
bad.
around these past 2 seasons. He's just out of view. You just
Yeah,
can't quite see him.
I just want them to throw some barks in there. And we're just like, where is he? But like, he's not actually in the frame. That would make it a little more realistic. Yeah. So, what do you think
Oh,
about the
Sam
lack
lived
of
too.
deaths? Yes.
Um, see, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that's another thing. It's like, oh well, the Night King, he didn't really kill anyone I cared about, and I'm like, well, think about it. Like, he didn't care about Grey Worm any more than he cared about Jorah or Barrack, right?
Uh,
Same.
I mean, Jorah, you've been with for a while. Barrack, I'd put on the same level as Grey Worm.
That's what I'm saying. It's like Grey Worm doesn't elevate us here.
No.
Podrick wouldn't either. I guess you're asking for Sam or Brienne because we know John and Danny aren't dying here. We're pretty confident Sansa and Tyrion won't, and we know Jaime is gonna probably die later, involving Cersei, and the Hound is gonna die with or be around for Clegane Bowl. So there's just not as many on the table. Like there's just some inherent plot armor going in. So I never really had the expectation. I did expect. I thought Brienne, and again, this is just something I just kind of put in my head long enough that I just expected it to happen. Brienne and Brienne maybe saving Jaime because he's not quite the fighter he used to be, and that motivating Jaime to go
Mhm.
after Cersei because Cersei didn't send help, right?
Yep.
Didn't go down that way. That's okay. Um, I guess Tormund. I guess people do really like Tormund. Sam. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you wanted. I guess Arya was in play. I did pick her to die in my pool. Not necessarily thought it would be now though. Uh, and at the end, it's like, oh wait, shit, this is really gonna kill Arya. This would have been fucking brutal. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was good enough for me. I mean, it's like, I mean, again, the Night King won until he didn't. Like it was there. It was over. So I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah. I didn't really care either way, honestly. If we get more of our favorite characters, like that's not a bad thing.
More are coming too. Like it's not over.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Brienne isn't going to make it out. I think her death will be what probably propels Jaime against Cersei. I imagine her death probably comes at Cersei's hand or something like that. Um, I I think the deaths that happened were appropriate. Lyanna got to kill Zombie 1-1. I mean,
Was
damn,
that one himself?
it looked like him. I don't know. I imagine he.
Only
I don't
only
know.
because one
Yeah,
died.
Battle of Bastards, right?
Yeah, he
So
died right at Winterfell. I assume they burned him.
yeah, I
But
assume.
another giant. That was cool to see a zombie giant because we
Yeah.
knew we had them. So that was cool. And honestly, Lyanna Mormont, they only wanted her to be in the show for that one scene where John and Sansa they recruit the Bear Island 2 seasons ago.
Mhm.
But she was such an impressive actress that they kept her around. So that's kind of really cool to see her elevated now to have this really uh, terrible, but also kind of a satisfying end for such
Mhm.
a ferocious little character. So that was great.
I thought Lyanna Mormont was the biggest surprise probably of the show and the one that we liked the most. Theon dying. What did you think of his ending and just his arc in general?
That was exactly what I expected to happen. He'd eventually die. And to be honest, I didn't expect the Night King himself to kill Theon. That was cool, I guess.
And make it look easy. Like,
Of course, but him and the Ironborn held their own for a while. I think that's
yeah.
cool because like they're supposed to be tough ass motherfuckers,
Hmm.
Theon notwithstanding. So that was cool that they actually pulled it off for a little bit. You know, it's because again, like the show has the Godswood kind of adjacent to Winterfell rather than being kind of inside Winterfell. So geography of it, it's kind of funny because like they didn't really go after the Godswood for some time, as you could see. They were just focused on fighting the main
Hmm.
fighters. But yeah, no, I think that was good for Theon. I know a lot of people I think have actually come around on Theon as a character and have as an arc. I do think it's an effective arc. It just depends if you actually got invested in him because the show kind of just sidelined him as a character for a while. Like, I mean, he has a whole season where his whole thing is just being tortured by Ramsay. You know, it's kind of a tough hang sometimes. But
Yeah.
I liked how they treated him.
Yeah, I think he's very impressive as a character. Just the fact that he went
Very
from
well acted.
being, yeah, definitely very well acted, and he just was this piece of shit for like a lot of the middle seasons, and then became Reek, and people were just like, "Man, you really are just like the worst at this point," especially because he had so many chances to redeem himself and just never did, and
Right.
finally gets that redemption here at the end. Which the fact that you took this character that seemed irredeemable and was able to do that for him was great. We didn't really mention the crypts too much. The crypts were not as safe as people expected, but still pretty safe, I have to say. If they had put like two soldiers down there, I feel like they would have been okay. You know, like some bodyguards or some people that could have used the sword.
One dragon glass dagger, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that would have been fine. You know, yeah, a lot of Sansa Tyrion stuff, which is very interesting. I'm
I
sure
like
we'll
that.
be talking about. Yeah, but I like that a lot. Yeah, I wasn't. I couldn't tell if it was romantic or just like I care about you. I don't think romantic, but more the second.
It was platonic death pact, bro. Like, all right,
Yeah.
here we go. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's
Hmm.
hopefully not die. That's what that was.
But yeah, I think there's some very interesting storylines still for the show, and obviously Cersei looking very happy in the previews for next week. So, going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Do you think they go back to Danny's home? You know, was it
Dragonstone.
Dragonstone?
Um, there's really no incentive to go there unless that's like their loading area for the fight. But
I think it's got to be.
yeah, I mean, we'll find out next week how much of their army is truly left. There really isn't anywhere to go for more. Um, One thing I've just kind of theorized on my own is I've actually seen it out there as well, but is was Bran when he warged into the Ravens kind of early on? Was he going for Mira Reed and Howland? Are they going to come back? The
Hmm.
Crannogman? I think ultimately that purpose would be for Howland to confirm the account that John is truly a Targaryen, as we know, yada yada. Um, I am curious what was going on with Bran there with the warging. It seems like something was, but yeah, no, I mean, it really depends where they're going to have this fight. I think Cersei's probably just going to have the Golden Company and Euron just hang out in King's Landing and say, "Bitch, come get us. We're fortified, and we sure as hell know you ain't fortified up there."
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I expect. We'll see if Dario is in the company. It'll definitely be late in the game for him to show his face again. Wouldn't
Hmm.
be surprised. Not not a big deal if he's not there though. Um, yeah, no, I think what's really cool is whether you thought it was abrupt or not, whether you thought it was anticlimactic or not, the long night threat is gone. The White Walkers are gone. And now we're back to the best aspect of Game of Thrones as a television show: the palace intrigue, the people talking in rooms, the politics, the backstabbing, the quest for the throne itself. And that's way more exciting to me. And I'm happy to get 3 more episodes dedicated to this. And also, Like also Potchnick will be back in 2 weeks to direct. So there's going to be another big fight.
Gonna be epic. Um, Game of Thrones, final word on it. It's good. If you haven't watched it yet, you should.
Don't know
Anyways,
why you're here.